You know exactly which photo to post. Not the first one you took, the third. You know the caption that sounds casual, but took 4 drafts. You know the timing, not too early, not too late. And you post it. Because you learned, a long time ago, that the unedited version doesn't get the same reaction. Your feed looks effortless. That's the point. Every image was chosen. Every story was framed. The post about vulnerability, that one was calculated too, because even authenticity, when it's performed, has a script. This video isn't about vanity. It's about what happens when the version of you that gets approved is nothing like the version of you that exists. And the distance between those two people, the one in the posts and the one in the mirror, isn't closing, it's growing. Every like widens it. In 1959, sociologist Irving Goffman published The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. His argument was unsettling in the best way. All social interaction is performance. We have a front stage, the self we present to others, and we have a backstage, the self we let exist when no one is watching. Goffman's insight wasn't cynical, it was just honest. The front stage is unavoidable. What made it survivable was the backstage. Social media eliminated the backstage. The profile is always on. The audience is always watching, or could be. The front stage became permanent, and the backstage, the place where you exist without performing, quietly disappeared. What replaced it wasn't authenticity. It was a more sophisticated version of the front stage. Psychologists call it performed authenticity, the performance that looks the most real, precisely because it was designed to. And here's where the mechanism starts to crack. Torrey Higgins introduced self-discrepancy theory in 1987. The idea is simple and brutal. We hold 3 versions of ourselves simultaneously. The actual self, who we are. The ideal self, who we want to be. The ought self, who we feel we should be. Social media doesn't create the gap between these selves. It amplifies it. The profile becomes a permanent display of the ideal self, curated, lit, chosen. And every like that ideal self receives is a vote against the actual one. Not maliciously, just mechanically. The algorithm rewards the performance. The performer keeps performing. And with every cycle, the distance between who gets the likes and who reads them quietly widens. Saturday night. Alone, exhausted, lights off. But the story from 2 hours ago shows something else. Afternoon coffee, golden hour light, living the dream. You read the responses lying on the couch. Between the person who posted and the person who read the replies. Those are 2 different people, and no one knows the second one exists. If that scene felt uncomfortably close, subscribe to Quiet Psychology, because what comes next is the part people rarely say out loud. But here's where it stops being a personal flaw and starts being a system. Donald Winnicott, a British psychoanalyst working in the 1960s, identified what he called the false self. His argument: when the real self is consistently met with disapproval, or silence, or indifference, the psyche builds a substitute, a version that functions in the world, a version that gets it right. The false self isn't a lie, it's a survival strategy. Online, the false self is rewarded constantly. Every like is reinforcement, every comment is confirmation, and the true self, the one that thinks ugly thoughts, has bad days, doesn't know what it's doing, gets less and less oxygen. It didn't die, it just stopped being fed. And then the loneliness sets in. Not the loneliness of being alone, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who love a version of you that you can barely recognize. The applause is real, but it's addressed to someone else. It's like being famous for a character. The love is genuine, but it's aimed at a person who doesn't quite exist. The real one is backstage, watching the character receive everything they actually need. But here's where it gets complicated. The performer tries to fix this. They post something vulnerable, something raw. They call it being real, except the vulnerability is curated, the pain chosen for its aesthetics, the angle where sadness looks beautiful, the confession that generates admiration rather than discomfort. Real became a genre, a content category with its own grammar, its own filter. And the cruelest part is that the performer genuinely doesn't know they're still performing. The filter runs automatically now, on everything. This is the part nobody tells you. The filter isn't on the app, it's in the mind. It edits thoughts before they become words. It edits words before they become posts. It edits moments before they become memories. And the function of all that editing is not vanity, it's fear. Not fear of being judged, fear of being seen as you actually are, and discovering that what you are is not enough. Now, the version that gets approved is the cage, and the approval is the lock. Because the more the curated version is loved, the more dangerous it becomes to let the real one surface. Every goals comment widens the gap. Every so inspiring adds another bar. The performer didn't build the prison. The audience did, one like at a time. And the cruelest part, they can't stop. Not because they love attention, because the moment the performance stops, the question arrives. What if the real version isn't enough? That question, that exact fear, is the same one carried by the person who never posts anything. The one who scrolls but never speaks. The one who disappears from every platform. Different strategy. Same wound. One hides, the other decorates, and both of them are exhausted in exactly the same way. When was the last time you posted something that could get 0 likes, and posted it anyway? Here's what the performance actually is, before it became a trap. Reading a room accurately, calibrating how you communicate, understanding what resonates in a given context. That's a rare and sophisticated social intelligence. The problem isn't having it. The problem is when it becomes the only mode of existing, when there's no version of you that lives outside the performance, not because you chose that, but because every other version was eventually edited out. The way back isn't dramatic, it's incremental, and it's uncomfortable. It starts with the first photo instead of the third, the message sent without revising it for the 5th time, the silence in the story that you don't fill with content. These aren't grand gestures, they're small acts of letting the actual self take up space, even if only in private, even if only once. And some people will leave when the performance stops. That's information, not failure. The connection was with the character, the ones who stay when the caption is clumsy, when the post gets 12 likes, when the story is genuinely boring. Those are the ones who found the real person. One of them is worth more than every audience the character ever had. The tiredness is the signal. If posting became obligation, if curating became automatic, if the filter runs before you've even decided to edit, that exhaustion is the actual self asking to exist. When the distance between versions costs more than the exposure frightens, that's the point of return. If exposed was the word your mind reached for just now, notice that. Not understood, not seen, exposed. That word tells you everything about what the performance is protecting. You're not performing because you want attention. You're performing because the unperformed version was met with something, once, or many times, that taught you, this isn't enough. That lesson was wrong. But unlearning it in public feels like the most dangerous thing you've ever done. If you love someone who performs, don't compliment the post. Ask about the thing they didn't post. That question will land harder than any like ever did. There's a filter running on everything, not the one on the app, the one in your head. It's been running so long you forgot it was on. You think this is just how you communicate. But there was a version before the filter, one that said things without calculating how they'd land, that posted without timing, that existed without editing. You don't remember what that version looked like, not because it's gone, because the filter has been on so long that unfiltered feels foreign. like looking in a mirror without anything on it for the first time in years. The face is yours. You just forgot what it looked like without the layer. The filter can come off, not all at once, not in public if that's too much, but in the small moments, the text you don't revise, the thought you share before it's polished, the silence you don't fill with content. Every unfiltered moment is a breath the real version has been waiting for. You don't have to burn the profile, you just have to let the face behind it breathe. If you've been performing, online, in person, in the version of yourself you let people see, and you're tired, say it. Not the curated version of tired, the real one. A word, a sentence, whatever is honest. For the person scrolling through this comment section looking for proof that the exhaustion they feel from being someone they're not has a name and an exit.